All right, before going into the next section, I just wanted to give you guys a quick introduction into the next few sections. These sections are actually very difficult for me to do because even as a nutritionist and with a very strong background in biochemistry, I do not have a strong opinion about whether or not to eat a plant-based diet primarily or whether to eat a meat-based diet primarily. There are many, many doctors out there who have put together some very good research on both sides. And ultimately, I have come to the conclusion that more than likely, this is a very individualistic type diet, or your diet in general should be. So the question really is not, should you eat meat? Should you eat a paleo diet? Is that the best kind of diet? Or should you be a vegetarian or should you be a vegan? Or what is the best diet? There is not a correct diet for everybody out there. I am very much a fan of a vegetarian diet and a vegan diet for those who want to utilize such a thing. I consider it very much of a therapeutic diet. There are many benefits to a vegetarian and a vegan diet. In fact, so much so that I really do not have any strong evidence against such a diet. If anything, I've only ever known for it to be helpful in people, particularly with chronic conditions, cancer, autoimmune conditions, a lot of long-term chronic conditions. I find them very helpful and very therapeutic. And to be quite honest, if I had stage 4 cancer, rather than pursuing chemotherapy and radiation, I most likely would try a very stringent vegan diet as therapy instead. So as I've said, there are many doctors out there who use that for therapy. Couple examples. I don't know if any of you have seen this book. It's called The Gerson Therapy. Dr. Gerson was one who has put together lots and lots of evidence against, or I should say, for cancer and for using a vegan diet for cancer patients. He has a clinic down in Mexico. His daughter now runs the clinic. He has passed away, but he has found cures for cancer that have literally been illegal in the United States. It is completely based off of a vegan diet, and he has a very good reason for doing what he does. If you were to read not just this book, but I know he has a movie that goes along with this called The Beautiful Truth. He has many, many research studies out there that are very in-depth and very biochemical in nature. And what he does makes a lot of sense. It really does. I understand why this type of a diet cures cancer. Another prime example, there's another doctor who wrote this book, The China Study. This does go along with the movie Forks Over Knives, if anyone has seen that movie. The book and the theory in general was written by T. Colin Campbell. He has a PhD in, I believe, biochemistry, maybe? Well, I'm not sure. Anyways, he did some amazing research. He actually went over to Asia and China and he studied populations that are primarily meat eaters versus populations that are or consume primarily a plant-based diet. And his studies are astounding. Without question, those who were primarily meat and dairy eaters had much, much higher levels of cancer compared to those who ate primarily a plant-based diet. And so he would be another very prominent physician out there. Actually, he's not, no, he's not a physician. He just has his PhD. But he has put together a lot of research that, again, it's very compelling, and particularly for the case against cancer. So can meat and dairy play a role in our risk of getting cancer? Perhaps so. According to these two researchers, anyways, they do. I personally tend to believe that there is a lot of truth to that, but the truth lies in primarily how we have transformed our dairy industry, our cattle industry, just meat in general, and we will get into all of that. The factory farming, the CAFO farms, the milk that is just full of antibiotics and hormones and drugs. I truly believe that a lot of that is responsible for the cancer that we're seeing as it relates to a meat and dairy based diet. We will talk about in that section when I discuss all the factory farms and stuff, this book, Fast Food Nation. I know there's a movie out there on this one. I have not personally seen it, But you read this book, and I guarantee you'll never eat at another fast food restaurant. I mean, this just really opens your eyes as to what that really is. I hate to even call it food, to be honest with you. On the other side of the fence, you have people who really believe strongly in a paleo type diet. For those of you who are not aware, a paleo diet is one that tries as much as possible to mimic what our ancestors would have eaten. So it's primarily a hunter-gatherer type diet. Therefore, there is a very strong emphasis on animal meat. There's a strong emphasis on dairy. There's a strong emphasis on vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds and beans, and all those things that in generations past would have been primarily available. There is no processed food. There is a lot of evidence for that too. I have seen that work in multiple cases for people to lose weight, to build lean muscle mass. I have put a lot of people on there and have seen their health improve tremendously. Another example of somebody who would be for that type of a diet, this is a physician, Natasha Campbell. She wrote this book, Gut and Psychology Syndrome. She will take a look at your gut in general, like what we discussed, in the microbiota in the gut, and she says, you know what? It's the fact that we're eating so much grainy foods and so much sugar and so much junk that you really need to heal your gut. And the way to heal it is to get back to the basics of bone broth and vegetable broths, but primarily meat broths. She takes a look at the bones and the ligaments and the joints and meat in general and says there's a lot of nutrients in those things, and you want to pull all that out, and the body can assimilate it very well because it mimics our own tissues. So she has cured many people, children particularly, with mental conditions or learning behaviors or learning challenges, or behavioral issues, with doing a diet that is very similar to a paleo diet, and it has worked. It's worked very well. So again, it's another example of a doctor who's done a lot of research, has a lot of experience behind her, and has used an entirely different type of a diet for a different type of a condition, and it has worked. Me personally, I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan. I could be if I was encouraged in that route. Like I said, if I had a condition that would benefit from such a diet, I would adopt it in a heartbeat. I see it as a therapeutic diet. I tend to lean a little bit more towards a paleo diet in my own life. I'm not a huge meat eater, but I do eat meat. I do include some dairy. And again, as we'll talk about later on, I feel that it is a quality issue. But again, I don't recommend it for everybody. I'm not against people who aren't for that. I think ultimately what it boils down to is it's your entire diet as a whole. If you are not struggling with a major health condition such as cancer, or maybe even diabetes could be thrown in there. I think primarily though of cancer, autoimmune conditions, and heart disease. Heart disease can be reversed with a vegan diet. People who have undergone triple bypass surgery and major issues like that, I most definitely recommend a vegan diet. It's been proven in many, many studies that it will literally dissolve plaque from your blood vessels. I think the benefit that we see from that, or the benefit to adding, actually what I should say there, the benefit to any diet is a good amount of fruits and vegetables. That's why a vegan diet can be so therapeutic. If you start dumping vegetables and fruits in your body, you are literally dumping vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients in your body. They're healing. There's no way around it. They're very healing. Ultimately, I guess you could have a very crappy vegetarian diet that will not be beneficial to you. Or you could have a very healthy vegetarian diet. In the same way, you could have a horrid meat-eating diet, or you could have a healthy meat-eating diet. Protein might not be the issue, the source of protein. Protein is going to be there. It needs to be there. Maybe the issue instead is everything else that comes along with that source of protein. So regardless if you eat meat or if you eat quinoa instead as your protein, you have to make sure you're getting lots of vegetables. And that means primarily green vegetables, red, yellow, orange. We're not talking about corn and potatoes and peas. The other thing is you have to get a decent amount of fruits in there. You have to get the sugar out. You have to get the huge amount of grains out. I think if you just boil it down to some of those basic nutritional principles, then the meat issue isn't so much of an issue. Although I will say, as we'll see in a couple sections from now, I really feel strongly that commercial meat is harming us. In other words, the beef that you buy from your grocery store, it's not the beef that you would be raising on a farm if you had a farm. The milk that you buy in the jugs nowadays that has been pasteurized and homogenized, it's not the same milk that gets squirt from the cow's udder. So I do feel strongly that if there is a heavy emphasis on meat and dairy in the diet, it needs to come from good natural sources. Otherwise, yes, it can predispose you to multiple health conditions. But again, it's because it's not real meat. When we're talking about meat, we need to be talking about the real thing. Same thing with dairy. It should be the real thing, not the form that we see nowadays in our grocery stores, which is very, very different. So I just want to give you this intro because I don't want you to see me as like a pro, or whether it be pro paleo or pro vegetarian or pro vegan. I'm not really either. I struggle with the issues still to this day. I see benefits in all, and I see drawbacks in all, except for I would have to say there are very, very few drawbacks to a vegetarian and vegan diet. Very few. There are some drawbacks to a strictly paleo type diet, but I see benefits for people utilizing any of those diets. Again, it boils down to, what does your health look like? What are you dealing with ultimately? If you're strong, healthy, maybe you just need to lose weight, but you're not really dealing with chronic conditions, go for a paleo diet. Again, fruits and vegetables have to be in there, nuts, seeds, beans, healthy fats. Get rid of the junk. Get rid of the processed, quick foods that are just stuffed full of chemicals and additives and preservatives and flavorings and colorings and a million other things that aren't designed to be in our body. Instead, add in the natural and you're going to get health benefits. Same thing with a vegetarian or a vegan diet. It's got to be natural. If it's natural and based on whole foods that are out there, it's going to be beneficial. But again, if a vegetarian diet is full of just non-meat processed food, you better believe it's going to be just as dangerous. So that's a little bit of my intro on here. I'm going to try to present to you guys the pros of a vegetarian diet, what is beneficial in a vegan diet, and then I'm going to get into a meat eating diet primarily too. What's beneficial about that, but more in that topic anyways, what is wrong with our meat and dairy today, so that you guys get a good understanding as to what are the risks and why it is that some people might be tending towards more of a vegan lifestyle nowadays. It's possible. Maybe 20 years from now, we'll see that is how we're all supposed to eat. I don't see it yet, but it might happen. I'm still learning as well in this whole category. So I invite you to learn with me. I'll give you the knowledge that I know. Does it mean it's going to be the same 10 years down the road? Maybe not. Maybe not. It all depends on what I'm going to learn. But I will try to impart to you the knowledge I do have as best as what I can. So thanks a lot, and let's keep going.